Hello and welcome to the Messy Middle. It's your favorite podcast that covers law, tech, the world of work, with a little bit of fun and pop culture mixed in. I am your host, the Chief Global Affairs and Legal Officer here at LinkedIn, Mr. Blake Lott. With me, I have some friends. On my right here, I got my Chief of Staff, Mindy Hepberger. How we doing, Mindy?
Doing well, Blake. How are you?
Pretty good. So now we're going to revisit. For those of you who listened to our first podcast, I checked in with you on your excitement scale. So we're going to go back to the excitement scale. On the first episode, you were a solid 3 out of 10. Where are we at today?
Same.
Okay. Well, one of these days we're gonna we'll probably stay there the whole time, honestly. But I'm gonna go to my left here. I got my producer, Mr. Michael Hughes. Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Good.
I'm going to answer for myself.
Oh, please do. Just jump right in there.
Yeah. I'm doing well.
Okay, you're doing well. So today we got a great guest with us. We have the Chief Legal Officer of Coinbase, Paul Grewal, joining us. And look, some people, they say that cryptocurrencies, it's just kind of like gambling. So I thought it would be good for us to talk a little bit about our own personal experiences with gambling. Mike, you a gambler? First of all, have you seen the Kenny Rogers movie, The Gambler?
I did not even know it was a movie, but I do love the song.
You do love the song. Do you know when to hold them?
I do, and when to fold them.
And when to walk away?
And when to run.
Okay, so what then is your personal experience then with gambling? Because you clearly know the Kenny Rogers stuff.
Yes, not profitable, but immensely enjoyable.
Okay, so what are some of the ways that you've lost at gambling?
Pick a table game that's in a casino.
Baccarat.
I'm probably losing. I have played, which I don't really know how to play.
Yeah, that probably.
I also heard it's the best odds in the casino. So then,
I think it helps if you know how to play the game. That helps your odds.
it's you got to get closest to 9. I know roughly how to play, but I don't know like a strategy for it. So I'm just hoping luck is on my side there.
So you're like an amiable gambler.
I'm an amiable gambler. Like I enjoy blackjack. I think there's a little bit of thinking involved there. Like I like craps. I know how to play that. I don't really understand how someone can win over the long term with it. And then I've dabbled in sports betting.
Dabbled in sport. Well, I think we'll get more into that later on today. But we're going to head over to Mindy here. Mindy, how about you? You like to throw the money down, a little gambly?
I'm not a gambler. I mean, I'd play enough to get the free drinks.
Okay, smart.
Spend the least amount of money and still get the free drinks and have a good night, but that's about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you're looking at where's slots?
Your slots.
Yes.
You're the cheapest table.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that now there's no such thing as a cheap table anymore. You go
I
to
don't think
Vegas.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you're like a $50 drink or something, it's
Yeah.
it's trouble.
You got Fremont Street.
You can
right?
go up to. I mean, if you go up to Nevada, like State Line.
Yeah.
Tahoe, you can play for less.
Play for less.
Yeah.
And that's what you're targeting.
That's what I'm targeting. I feel like life is enough of a gamble that I don't need to go do it.
Oh, that was deep. That was deep. I agree. Life is a gamble.
What about you, Blake? What is your personal experience with
A
gambling?
lot of poker in college. Of
Okay.
poker in college. Like in the dorm room, there was many hours. And I didn't lose, but I didn't win. I lost. We had one, Rob, my roommate, basically, we funded, at least his social life, his books, I'd say his travel.
And now poker in the sense of like today where it's like Texas Hold'em, or were you playing like stud and stuff?
Definitely stud. We would play guts, a lot of guts. I don't know if you know that one.
I don't even think I know
It's
that.
like a matching pot game, and used to get. But like basically, if you're in college, you can kill the hours there. If you have and we had a kegerator in the room as well.
Yes.
So kegerator, poker, many hours, and led me to really be able to embrace disappointment in life when it happens.
Yeah, you can embrace failure early. That's
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
I learned how to get over that. That and probability. Mindy knows I do math in my head all the time.
Yep.
So that's all. It's all from gambling.
That's pretty good. But no table games for you. You that was in college. Now
Rare.
you're done.
Rare. No. I've actually when I played poker in casinos, I tend to win. But that's, again, it was Rob's fault. The guy was a very, very good poker player, so we basically funded most of his enjoyment in college. But look, that's just one aspect of ourselves with gambling. And, what we need to do is we need to talk to our buddy Paul. Talk to him about cryptocurrencies and whether or not it is or isn't gamble. Because, like, look, on the one hand, when it comes to cryptocurrency, there's definitely some folks who think it's just rampant speculation and should be banned, and other people who think it's the finance of the future. The truth, I think it's somewhere in the messy middle. But we're going to need to ask our friend Paul Grewal. Paul Grewal, welcome, Paul.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be on with you.
So thanks for coming on and mixing it up with us here. We usually like to start, it is a LinkedIn podcast, so we like to start a little bit on with career journey with our friends. Now, I know that you did a bunch of stuff, then you went to law school, you became a law firm partner. We all know that nobody cares about law firm partners, so let's start the story after that, where you became a magistrate judge. And so how does one actually become a magistrate judge? Like, do you have to how much do you have to network? Do you have to, is it about who you know, or how does that process work?
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me. And I will say, talking career journey with the senior executive at LinkedIn is a bit intimidating. So I will do my best.
I will do my best. I'm also going to stare at you like very intimidating fashion. So there we go.
Exactly right. Look, the process and path to becoming a magistrate judge is both highly formal and extremely informal in a couple of different ways. The formal path is you apply like any other job.
I didn't realize that.
Because unlike most federal trial court judges who are nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate, and serve for life, magistrate judges are actually appointees of the court themselves. And so what happens is when there is an opening on a district court, like, for example, the Northern District of California where I serve, there's an official notice posted, there are qualifications laid out, and you submit a written application to kick off the process. That's how it works formally. The less formal, maybe even informal part of the process is that, by the time you get to sort of the final list of candidates, in most cases, it's a group of 5, 6, or 7 people. You're talking about people, all of whom could do the job and do the job very well.
I'm sure.
And so I think part of it is, who the sitting judges are most comfortable with, who they're most excited about, and maybe even a little bit, who they know from previous experience. So it's all that wrapped up into one big question.
Honestly, not so different than a lot of jobs, right? Then at that point,
for sure.
And then what about, did you have did you have a judicial philosophy, anything that, I'm not sure, if you're on the Supreme Court, you are Scalia and you're originalists. If you're a magistrate, do magistrate judges have judicial philosophies? Did you have one?
I'm sure some magistrate judges have a judicial philosophy. I'm not sure I ever found mine.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, 98.6% of the cases and controversies that come into any court, including a federal district court presided over by a magistrate judge, don't really involve politics or philosophy. It's really about taking the law, applying it to the facts, and making calls. And so the circumstances where I think one's philosophy could present itself or form are actually pretty far and few between.
Yeah, interesting. So your career journey went on, and you left, and it's somewhat like, I remember when I heard about it at the time, I was interested and surprised. You left the bench and you went to Facebook and sort of led litigation, regulatory, a bunch of things that was had overlap with what I was doing at the time. And I'm curious, at the time, you were there at a pretty interesting time, and it changed over time. When you joined, did people still think of Facebook as the good guys? And was it different inside the company versus outside the company? Did it change for either one of those at the time we were there? And how did that affect your job?
Well, after about 6 years, give or take, on the bench, I looked at people like you, Blake, and frankly, it looked like you were having a lot of fun.
I did have a lot of fun.
And maybe yeah, and still do, right? And I was at a point where I hadn't accomplished everything I maybe could have as a judge, but I felt like I had done a lot and done maybe even more than I would have expected after a relatively short tenure. And so, I did take a somewhat unusual step in leaving the court. Maybe even more unusual than that was leaving the court to go to a tech company. I don't think that is very common. And I don't think that since I left, there has been a stampede following me. But for me, it was, I think the combination of the challenge, I'd never worked in-house before, and the particular challenge that Facebook was facing at that time, as you allude to, for almost its entire history up until that point, Facebook was one of those tech success stories that could do no wrong and that captured the public's imagination and attention. At that time, we were still in the phase of the company's history when presidents and prime ministers would be walking around campus like it was nothing, or you'd go to lunch and you'd bump into a rapper or a famous artist in the cafeteria.
Which rapper did you bump into in the cafeteria?
Oh, I can't betray confidences under the terms of my exit agreement.
That's fair. Okay.
I will just say that
it was Nelly, wasn't it? Was it Nelly?
Honestly, if it were Nelly, I would tell you because I would be so excited by that.
Okay.
But, it was no big deal. These were things that just happened every day. And then the worm turned, as they say. And by the fall of 2016, when I had finally settled in after a few months, things changed dramatically at Facebook. We had the presidential election, which raised, allegations of Russian interference on the platform. Not long after that, we had the Cambridge Analytica affair. And so in my role running lit and regulatory affairs, I was kind of soon dragged into a bunch of stuff that, maybe was predictable with the benefit of hindsight, but certainly was not something I expected to be playing some part in so quickly in my tenure there.
And how much did your time on the bench prepare you or not prepare you for where you ended up there?
It was actually the most fantastic preparation I could have ever imagined. And the reason for that is, as maybe better than just about anybody, when you're running a chunk of a legal team at a company like LinkedIn or Facebook, you are thrown into a dozen, maybe 24 different subject matter areas on any given day, right?
Sure.
You're dealing with highly charged rooms and environments regularly. You are almost always given no good choice in a situation, only a series of bad ones.
Right.
And, I think the other thing that, also was quite relevant and drew upon my experience at the court, you are forced to make decisions and do so quickly, even if on imperfect information. And so in a lot of ways, my time at the court was the ideal training for what was to come.
Nice.
So you've been at Facebook now for a few years. You've spent time on the bench, now worked in-house at a tech company. What drew you to crypto in general and Coinbase? What was the genesis of you becoming the chief legal officer there?
Yeah, so I was at Facebook when in 2018 or so, the company made a decision to pursue something called a stablecoin in the form of a project called Libra. And it turned out that as we were dealing with a number of open questions, I haven't, because, right as we were dealing with Cambridge Analytica and all the concerns about our privacy practices, it turns out, announcing the intent to launch a global stablecoin that to some felt like a threat to the U.S. dollar and other fiat currencies.
Everybody
worldwide.
was like, "Huzzah! Great, let's do it."
Wasn't exactly perfectly timed or well staged. Again, with the benefit of hindsight. So, even though I wasn't directly involved in that product launch, in the aftermath of that, and as our executives were called to testify and the like, I certainly was given the opportunity to learn much more about how crypto worked, what stablecoins were, and what interesting legal issues could come of that. And so, in a lot of ways, I was primed for the call from Coinbase, and as I came to learn. Not long after that, it was already anticipating many of the issues that were to follow. I also should say there was one earlier moment, Blake, that and everybody that was certainly a part of the genesis for me, which was on the bench as a magistrate judge, something in like 2011 or 2012. I issued a search and seizure warrant for this strange new digital currency called Bitcoin. And while I can't say for certain I was the first to do that. I certainly must have been one of the first. And so the breadcrumbs had been laid long before Coinbase came calling, for sure.
Oh, that's so interesting. So, okay, great. I'm glad we got to crypto because I want to ask you. So, Coinbase, the leading crypto exchange in the world, and probably much more. So, I, like many people, have heard about crypto, talked about all the time, but like really have no idea what it is, right? So if you're like just a regular person, like treat me like I'm a 7-year-old, why should I care about crypto? Assume I know nothing, and you won't be far from the truth. And also, as an extra bonus points, if you do not use the word the blockchain, because nobody really knows what, like, that's not, I don't even know if that's a real thing. I hear it all the time. But you may use the words distributed ledger if you'd like.
All right. Well, within those very narrow constraints,
Yes.
I will attempt to do my best. I will start by saying that if you were actually a 7-year-old, I would tell you you shouldn't care about crypto.
Oh, that's
Frankly, you ought
smart.
to go outside and play.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
good.
Go
Fair
touch
enough.
some grass. Go feel the sun.
But I'm a
on
very
the back of your neck.
curious 7-year-old as I was.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, look, the reason why anybody should, I think, care about crypto is that, in a nutshell, it has become, I think, an important part of our financial system and will impact how we all interact with our economy, both here in the United States and globally, in very important ways. So that's the why.
Okay.
Now, what is it? What does it do? You can think of it in a number of different ways. A lot of people inside of crypto think of it as alternatively a store of value, like something like gold, which holds value over time and space in ways that are useful, even as, dollars and other fiat currencies rise and fall, sometimes quite dramatically. It's also a unit of account or a means of payment, which means it's another way to pay for things and move value in ways that are much more efficient than gold bars or dollars, or if you think back to early money, things like seashells or stones. It is effectively programmable money. And so it is as easy to send from one person to another as an email and just as fast.
So, I'm a big seashell guy, actually. So this is you're talking you're talking my language. Mindy, how do you feel about seashells as currency?
Never use seashells as currency, actually.
Not as currency?
I watched a TikTok video, actually, asked it to explain to me crypto.
Okay, and what did it say?
And it gave me an analogy to using points at like a Sephora, which tells you something about my TikTok feed.
Yes,
actually, probably a little bit.
Personalizing here.
So it, like points that you can use to purchase things.
Is that how did TikTok do on that one, Paul? You seem a little underwhelmed by that one.
I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think that's the basic idea. Yeah, because look, whether it's ancient societies that use seashells or more recent ones that use gold bars, or whether today with your Sephora account, the fact of the matter is, like, we rely upon all sorts of alternatives for credit or value to pay for things. And in most cases, dollars or euros or whatever work perfectly fine. In most cases, if you want to send money electronically, a wire through your bank or a send on Venmo or Cash App is probably okay. The problem is, in many cases, there can be delay, there can be expense, and if you're talking about a single payment to a manufacturer down the street, it probably doesn't make as much sense to rely upon crypto. But if you're managing treasuries, if you're moving tens of millions of dollars on a daily basis from one account to pay for vendors in one country to another account to pay for employees, it matters that this be as efficient, as fast, and as cheap as possible. And that's what crypto offers.
Faster, cheaper, better.
Yeah, usually that's a winning strategy.
It usually works. What about like some people are, and popular perception is like, okay, crypto is like for young bros who like to gamble. I was literally, I was in DC. I was in an Uber. I was talking about how I was going to interview like the chief legal officer at Coinbase, and the Uber driver goes, "Oh yeah, I lost all my money in crypto." He's like, I had 150,000, I invested, it went to 500,000, then I put in these other coins, and those went down, and they're gone, and now I'm driving an Uber. But he was still very pro crypto. Actually, he was super pro crypto. But so what if somebody says, "Hey, crypto's just gambling," what do you say to them?
Well, what I say to them is, it's probably time to take another look, because look, the reality is that in the earliest days of crypto, as people were just first learning what these things were and what they could do, quite naturally, it was, I think, the early adopters, many of whom will use these currencies for activities that fell outside of traditional finance, that were the first to embrace it.
Yeah.
The fact is, though, that today, though, crypto in many ways has become boring. I hate to admit this.
Very
Blake,
LinkedIn.
But,
Crypto is LinkedIn now.
Well, I'm neither young. I don't really gamble much.
Yeah.
And I'm a pretty poor example of a bro in many ways. I've got a couple kids. I go to bed at 8 o'clock, and
You go to bed at 8
I drive a
o'clock?
Volvo.
You go to bed at 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Yeah. I'm
Really?
a farmer. I'm a farmer in
What
my
time
heart.
do you
Yeah,
get? Would you
early
get up
bed,
at
early
2:30 in the morning?
Not quite 2:30, but not much long after that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that because you
So-
like to do like I'm going to grind and get stuff done from 3 to 6 when nobody else bothers me? Or is it just like you're just more like are you actually a farmer? Do you farm?
I don't actually farm, but I come from farming stock. So
interesting.
I hesitate to describe my very basic gardening skills as farming. But to answer your question, I'm an early bed, early to rise guy in large part because I like to exercise first thing. I like to
Nice.
get some work done before the inbox piles up, and I like the peace and quiet of my house before all hell breaks loose when everybody else wakes up.
And what's your go-to exercise? We're going to be doing a wellness segment at the end of this, so I'm interested in what's the Grewal wellness routine?
Well, if you follow me on Strava,
I do
which
not,
invite
but
you
I
to do,
should. I should. I don't know what Strava
you
is.
would- you-
Do I know what Strava is?
it's a social
Save it for the
media
wellness
app
section.
Okay, sorry, it's a
for
wellness.
amateur athletes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
100%. And I underscore amateur in my case. I'm a Peloton fan. I lift, I run,
Nice.
I ski, I bike, I do a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God, we should have you on the wellness.
Pretty
segment.
active.
It's pretty good. But well, let's talk about wellness. Let's talk about the wellness of our regulatory and legislative regime with respect to crypto. Do you see that transition?
Well
It's
done.
pretty good, right? I'm a natural. So again, treating me like the very precocious 7-year-old who wants to know about these things. Explain to me what the current state of crypto of legislation is around cryptocurrency, what it currently is, and what it should be.
Well, the easiest way to think about it is this. Since its inception, crypto has been subject to regulation. Initially, it was regulation at the state level with things like money transmission licenses and, of course, consumer protection laws and the rest. Over time, federal rules started to come into place. Crypto and exchanges that provide access to crypto, like Coinbase, are treated as money services businesses, which means you have to register with the Department of Treasury, you're subject to the Bank Secrecy Act and things like that. But what has been missing for crypto for some time has been a comprehensive set of laws that define what crypto it falls to the jurisdiction of. For example, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, what authority the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, has over crypto, and what is the best way to make sure that bad guys are held to account who may be trying to use crypto for nefarious purposes. So we have been working for the last several years on legislation that would answer these and many other questions. We've had some success.
Yeah.
Last year, we were successful in getting legislation for stable coins, a particular type of crypto, passed. That's something called the Genius Act, sometime in the middle of last year. And we are now
I like the
working
label on that Genius Act. That you're going to get that one passed. That's a good one.
Well, I don't know who actually comes up with the acronyms and labels that apply, but in that case, I think they nailed it.
Yep.
Right now, we're working on getting a much more comprehensive set of rules for what we call market structure in crypto passed, and we're very close. The House has already passed a bill. The Senate has had multiple hearings on this in the banking and ag committees, and we're hopeful that we're going to get this thing over the line in short order.
Okay, so do you have a general strategy or philosophy and when you do this kind of engagement work? Like so generally, how do you approach it? And then like what in your experience works and what doesn't when you're in there, either talking to on the regulatory side and the versus the member side, and it might be different. Like, how do you approach all this work and how do you frame it?
So I always start with a very basic question, but a very important question, which is, what is it we actually want? Because you could be surprised how often companies and industries and other interests pursue regulatory strategies without really understanding what the end game really is. In our case, what we want is stability. For several years, really the last 4 years of the previous administration, crypto had no stability. In fact, it had nothing but instability in the form of investigations, lawsuits, and challenges by the Securities and Exchange Commission in particular that really fundamentally sought to undermine our right to operate in the United States. So how we go about getting a consensus around a set of rules really it begins with answering that question. And then from there, it's important to lay out both the public case for what you want and to privately explain why what you want is in the interest of the person that you're explaining it to.
Yeah.
Different politicians, different regulators have different priorities or motivations. And so it's always important, I think, to frame what you want very explicitly in terms of what they want, because at the end of the day, these are human beings. And generally human beings are focused first and foremost on their own interests, much more than broader interests that may be important to them.
Totally. And the key is to do it in a way where even if you don't say exactly the same thing to every single person, you're not saying one thing to one person and the opposite to somebody else. You're
sure.
You have to have that, like, your credibility is your coin, as you know. So like you need to be in a situation where, okay, you're talking to people and the things that they care about, but they're all things that you can support.
Absolutely. And where I really feel that lesson for me, Blake, was honed and refined was in the courtroom, because when I was trying cases once upon a time myself, or presiding over trials as a judge, I saw over and over again good lawyers with good cases lose when they forgot that basic lesson you were just laying out, which is preserve your credibility at all costs, right? And when it was tempting to take a shortcut and make a point that was fundamentally undermined or undercut by something else they had said or done, especially in front of the jury, in an adversarial system, that's going to be exposed almost immediately. Well, when you're lobbying or pushing for legislation, you're not in a directly adversarial system. Everyone's not literally sitting at the same table in most cases, but you are still very much in an adversarial system where if you say one thing to one person, but say something else to another, that's going to be called out. And at that point, you're toast.
And you're talking about the engagement that you're doing with members of Congress and the strategy. How is the relationship with the industry at large with financial services incumbents? Like, is Coinbase and the crypto industry considered a threat? Is it very adversarial? Do people see the writing on the wall? What's that like?
Well, some people have described us as frenemies with traditional finance, in that we have some very important partnerships with finance, even as we obviously pose some threat to their traditional business model. But I actually think that actually misses an important nuance, which is, yes, we have disagreements. For example, with respect to stable coins, I mentioned earlier. There obviously is a direct competitive threat posed by another way to move dollars around on the internet besides your bank account. But I wouldn't say that that puts us in a hostile adversarial position overall, because the fact of the matter is that improving the financial system is ultimately in everyone's interest, and perhaps a little less Pollyannish. There will be plenty of opportunity and indeed plenty of money to be made for all of us if we can move this thing forward through new technology and new standards. And so we partner wherever we can, and where we disagree intensely sometimes, but for the most part respectfully. And I think overall that's served the American public's interests.
Is there what's your favorite bank to work with? And I'm not saying like where do you bank or not, but like what bank do you think gets it?
Oh gosh, now you're asking me to pick either among my children or like.
I guess
my least fa-
okay. We can cut this out of the pod. Don't worry. Like you love all you love.
No. Look, I will say, like, there have been some very forward-looking banks that I think get crypto, and I can say this. I think that right now in the banking industry, there is an important moment of decision that it confronts, which is, I think for the longest time, the largest banks, the so-called GSIBs, have operated in general partnership with much smaller regional and local banks and even community banks, because they generally have shared a common interest on whatever banking rules or banking standards may be discussed. But I think that a lot of community banks and a lot of smaller and regional banks have come to understand that crypto and the technology behind it actually offer a very powerful way for them to compete much more directly and intensely with the largest global banks. And so I think there is a reckoning coming within banking, if I can offer that, that it is yet to take place, but it's coming. And I think you're going to see different banks look at technology, including crypto, much more as an opportunity than as a threat to the traditional business.
And Paul, I have another question along those same lines with when you're speaking to members of Congress and you have to go on the Hill is inarguably probably, scandals involving other exchanges and everything have made your job more difficult and have made it harder maybe to gain trust among the American people or members of Congress. How much of your time is spent when you're talking to these legislators convincing why you're not them or why that's an outlier within the industry at large?
Unfortunately, and I think in earlier days, it took up an extraordinary percentage of the time. And look, it's never a good thing when, not just one, but multiple leading figures in your industry, indeed, in some cases, your direct competitors, are indicted, convicted, and go to jail. And so
I agree that is generally not good. I'm with you. Like
generally not good.
Some top legal analysis here. I'm with you. I'm with you on that one, Paul.
That's right. But in some ways there is a huge opportunity in that, because when you can demonstrate that no, we've actually been in existence for 14 years. We are licensed at the state level. We have licenses at the federal level. We operate in dozens or hundreds of, or at least 100 or 200 countries. We have thousands of employees. We're publicly listed. We are audited by Big Four accounting firms. When you can demonstrate all the ways in which you've built your business in a very different way from some of those competitors that have chosen to take shortcuts, in a certain way, it actually enhances your trust and your credibility. But you have to do the work and you have to take the time. And that's what we've tried to do in all these engagements now going back many years.
Yes, that makes sense to me. Without dumping on competitors, if you can keep your nose clean when they don't, that sometimes distinguishes you. So I said that very diplomatically. Did you like that, Paul? Maybe not.
I do.
Maybe
I
not.
do.
Maybe not that diplomatic.
Maybe you should be getting on the next red eye to Washington. I'd love to send you my stead.
Yeah, I bet. You spend a lot of time there when you're trying to really get that bill across the line. You got to do the work. I wanted to ask you about prediction markets, because we talked earlier about gambling and crypto. It feels like prediction markets, isn't that just kind of like literally gambling? Like, how is this different than gambling? What is the like talk to the skeptic as to like what's good, what's the optimist case for why prediction markets, and then talk to them and say like, hey, here's the reason that what we can do for safeguards, whether or not it's inside trading or all those sort of things.
Yeah, look, prediction markets are definitely having a moment. I think the moment actually began in November of 24 around the presidential election, when it became clear that multiple prediction markets were just much more accurate and much more ahead of the curve in identifying who the winner of that election would be than, say, traditional polling.
Yep.
I think since that time, prediction markets have only gained traction, in large part because they give people what they want in a way that they want it more than what is traditionally the case. What a prediction market is at its core is nothing more than a listing of contracts for different types of events, some of which can include things that have otherwise been popularized in in traditional sports betting, like picking the winner of the Super Bowl, or trying to identify how many points or rebounds LeBron James might have in a particular game. But the types of contracts that are listed in prediction markets go far beyond just sports events. And I think that it's not surprising that sports have been among the more popular subjects early in this space, in large part because Americans, including myself, love sports, maybe more than just about anything else. The reason why, though, prediction markets legally work very differently than, say, a casino or a sports book is that, unlike a casino or a sports book where you're betting against the house, where the house isn't there simply to take a small cut of the transaction, but is actually sitting on the other side of the table from you when you make that bet, with prediction markets, you're literally listing contracts and taking the other side of a transaction from another person or another entity, not the company that sits in the middle of all of that. And that legally has tremendous implications under the Commodities Exchange Act, which is the law that governs prediction markets and event contracts and the like. And so there have been some open questions about how all of this works. But the fact of the matter is, it's again, faster, better, cheaper way for people to engage in economic activity that they want to engage in. And so it's important that we get the law right. It's important that we cross every T and dot every I. But I think once all that works itself out, you're going to just see a much more efficient, effective, and frankly, safe way for people to do things that they want to do.
I having looked at some of the briefing the cases, because there's a bunch of back and forth between particularly on the states looking to regulate sports betting in particular. My sense is that their argument in the area of sports gambling and sports betting, given that has been traditionally been an area of state province, is maybe a little stronger than like elections and other things. But I know the cases have gone both ways. I wouldn't be completely surprised if there was a split there, but we'll see.
Well, it's interesting. There are certainly lower courts have come out in different ways in the cases that have been decided so far. I think, though, Blake, ultimately this will have to be resolved at the appellate level, maybe even at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And I think whatever court ultimately renders the final word, they're going to have to look to the law Congress wrote, and that particular law that I mentioned earlier, the Commodities Exchange Act,
sure,
could not be clearer that these listed contracts, when they are on CFTC regulated exchanges, are swaps, and swaps are the exclusive province of the federal government, not the states.
I've seen trading places. I know all about. That. Actually, everything I learned about the CFTC was from trading places, and the end when they do the bit with the oranges. So
orange juice, pork bellies, it all goes back to trading places.
It all goes back to trading places.
Do you have one bet for the prediction markets? If you have like an NBA champion, do you have something that we should be looking at as sports rolls around?
I'll offer one observation. It's certainly not financial advice, or definitely not any other kind of advice. I find that prediction markets on weather are super interesting. And the reason for that is, it's not subject to any of the manipulation concerns or other concerns that have been raised about markets. And it's like one of the few areas where you really can have an information advantage over others based on your own independent research and work. So there's a whole community of weather prediction markets types who are constantly buying and selling contracts on, how much rain or how much sun a given location is going to get. Check it out. I'm telling you, it's way more interesting than I could possibly make it sound in 20 seconds.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah, Mindy's now going to spend the entire weekend doing a deep dive on this, and then when she comes
will
in
the
on
high
Monday.
in Sunnyvale be 81 or 82 degrees? This is the operative question.
Blake, the barometer's dropping.
That's right. Stat. Call Grewal. We like to do have a point of the podcast here where we flip it and we say enough about you. Let's talk about me. So we're going to do this in two ways. First of all, it's funny because I was talking to my daughter and about I was saying that I was going to have you on, head of Coinbase crypto, and she's like, 'cause she knew that my first guest was Jay Obernolte, who's like leading AI expert, and so she's like, okay, Dad, AI and crypto, way to be a man with a podcast. but I'm saying no. Paul's great. He's gonna flip it on me. So here's your chance. First of all, would love for you to I love how you do use LinkedIn. Like, you use way more humor on LinkedIn and show more of yourself on there. So if you want to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, how you use it, what you think, how we could be better, and then if you any questions you want to fire back at me, we can turn the tables.
Oh my gosh, where to begin? First of all, I love LinkedIn. I've been a user for many, many years. And what I like about it is that people are just kinder to one another on LinkedIn and more respectful in their engagements, even when on occasion people bring up relatively controversial subjects. So I just find that the tone and the quality of the discourse on LinkedIn better than just about any other place. You mentioned I try to offer a little bit more of my personality than maybe some others. And I get it, especially lawyers on LinkedIn tend to be a bit more formal and operating within, the box that they've set for themselves in terms of their professional persona. I respect that, but I also think that people want to know a little bit about who you are and what you are. And so it's effective and frankly fun just to show a bit more of your personality than you might otherwise be inclined, especially if the expectations are so low as they are for lawyers. As for questions and feedback I have for you, Blake, oh my gosh, where to begin?
Go.
So first and foremost, I find that the video on LinkedIn is really powerful. I get great feedback on the videos that I post.
Yep.
I find that the video editing tools on LinkedIn are maybe a half a click or a half a step behind where they are on some other platforms. So just as a customer and a proud user, I offer the feedback that I think if you guys up that game just a tad, you're going to see a flood come in of really interesting content, even above and beyond what you got right now.
Super fair. We do have a CapCut integration, so I push you that way, but very, very, very fair. Mike was a TikTok guy, so he understands the power of making tools to make it better.
Awesome. Well, I think that is totally fair. And then the question I have for you is, I'm always looking for even more interesting people to follow. Who's someone that you've recently started to follow, or maybe have followed for a while, that some of us wouldn't know that we really ought to consider giving a click to?
I'm not sure if you wouldn't know, but I think Spencer Cox is really interesting. Who is the governor of Utah? If you're in our space and you're interested in tech and law and somebody who is not being passive about what he thinks and how tech should be regulated, I think I would definitely follow Spencer Cox. My understanding is he's mostly posting on LinkedIn, but he may also, his team may also post on X. He particular, I think he's a great follow.
I love that suggestion. And Governor Cox has certainly not been shy in sharing his opinions on prediction markets recently. And so I'm very well aware of his independent thinking on technology issues. So I'll give him a follow for sure.
Yeah. So I think good content and also probably good for your job to follow him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's both personal and professional incentives there. And if I can ask one other question of you,
sure.
And LinkedIn, what do you think? I mean, you're swimming in this day in and day out. You've helped build the company, given your tenure. What do you think makes for the most interesting content that you see every day? If there's one quality above all others that stands out in your mind.
I think the most important thing is authenticity. So that's why I think you're doing it so well. Honestly, I think that and this is the part where we all pat each other in the back, but genuinely, particularly lawyers, they feel like they have to play it safe. They have to not show themselves. They need to be it's just me on a panel and me I don't know, sitting on a throne. No, the fact that if you get a sense of the person, then when the times that you're in saying here's what the policy should be, I'm so much more dialed in. So that's what I'm trying. That's why I started a podcast.
Yes. Bringing it full circle.
Yes, exactly.
I love it.
But
I love it.
thank you, Paul, for your time. Thank you for your feedback. Any feedback for Mike or Mindy? Any questions for Mike or Mindy before we go?
No, gosh, you guys have made this so much fun and easy. Thank you for having me. It's really been fun.
Yeah, it's been great, Paul. Like I said, I'm a fan, and wish you luck in DC. And thanks for educating us more about what crypto is.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, welcome back to the Messy Middle. As you know, it's a podcast that covers the world of law, tech, the world of work, but also with some fun and pop culture mixed in. So we're going to be going to that fun part right now and learning a little bit more about ourselves. On our first episode, we had some fashion advice. What else do we like to know about? We like to know about wellness. So we are going to the source. Our director of wellness here at LinkedIn, Mr. Michael Susie. Welcome to the Messy Middle, Michael. Oh, yes.
Blake, it is great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, we need the help, Mike. I got to tell you, we need to upgrade ourselves. We are all a work in progress. Each one of us is going to be coming to you as the director of wellness, the wellness guru, if you will, to help us with our wellness issues and problems. And we'll start with Mike.
Great place to
Because he
start.
needs the most help.
Great place to start. I am in my late 30s now. I have 3
Stop
children.
bragging.
Not to give away my age here, but
Oh,
in my
late 30s. He's in his late 30s.
But I have young kids, so I don't have a ton of time to go to the gym yet. Every summer, I'm just like,
Sure.
I wish I was jacked. It looks like it's very fun to be. I intrinsically just don't have a ton of time to go to the gym, given my schedule and everything. And I also hate getting sore. I've started working out a few times, and then you get sore immediately, and you're just like, I don't want to deal with this, so then I'm done. What can I do? What should I be thinking about to push through that? And how can I go best on my journey to just be jacked for the summer?
Sure. Well, that's a lot to take in all at once, to go from not wanting to be sore, but also wanting to be jacked. So you may have to have a little bit of give and take there, but embrace the soreness. That's one thing I would say. Embrace it. It's a badge of honor. Wear that. How are your kids? How old is the oldest and the youngest?
Young. My oldest is 6. My youngest is 1.
Perfect. So various weights. So as you progress your weights, you take the 1-year-old, you squat and press, and then you want to go heavier, you get the 6-year-old. And then you can do that till they're 18, you know, and you'll have plenty of time and it'll be family time. You're with the kids. But progression is about starting with light weights, high reps, and then as you do the heavier kid, you do less reps.
Oh, so
that's
see,
my advice.
This is really useful for me because I had thought really the only way there is you've got to be lifting real heavy stuff.
That's going to add bulk, but if you want to get sculpted, you need to start off doing higher reps, like 15 rep range, like 3, 4, maybe 4 sets, 15 rep range. That's going to only allow you to do so much weight. Right. And also you should be able to do on your 15th rep of your last set, you should be able to get 2 more reps. Not that you should do them. You should be able to get 2 more. If you can't, then your weight's too heavy.
So bring it down to where depends if you have a first grader. So for a first grader and you want to do 15 and then you up yourself to a third grader if you're pushing yourself.
Then you do 10 reps.
Again, all in your family, Mike. All in your family.
Yes.
Well, you just wait. You'll come back to New York now. My traps will be huge. I'll have no neck.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike is set. Okay. Mike's going to be so jacked on Long Island when he hits the beach this summer. All right, Mindy.
I mean, I could not hate working out more. So what do you say to somebody who really just doesn't enjoy it at all? I get none of this endorphin hit. I get nothing. So
Sure.
What do you recommend?
Well, one thing I would recommend first, don't do anything you hate. Life should be enjoyed, not endured. So if you don't like it, don't do it, right? This isn't like high school calculus that you have to do with a graduate or whatever. So, within our tenets of wellness, and if people aren't familiar, we have our 6 tenets of wellness, which are the principles of our wellness program. And they are thoughts, breathing, hydration, nutrition, movement, and rest. Notice it's not exercise. So the point is, have your body be in motion, avoid stagnation. Now, if you wanted to do certain things like Mike wanted to do, or if you wanted to compete in the Olympics, I'd say you need to get into the gym and exercise. But if your goal is just to have some good flexibility, be mobile, keep our joints moving well as we get older, then just think about movement. Don't think about exercise, because that seems to be a demon word. So don't do
Good
it.
advice. I mean, I sounded a little delivered to my age range, but that's fair. It's fair.
Yes. For those of us, what was that Gen X specific advice?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, was this like, are you going to tell her to do water aerobics at the Y? Or I mean, what are we talking about here?
I would say also, as we get older, and I'm Gen X also, I'm smack dab in the middle of that. We want to also maintain muscle mass and bone density as we get older. And proprioception, there's your word of the day, proprioception.
That's not a real word.
Knowing
It is.
knowing where you are in space, right? Without having to necessarily see things. And so that helps us not fall. And as we get older, a fall is so much worse than when we are younger. So like, think about the benefits of doing, that could be standing on a stability pad, like those blue pads that you have in the gym, or a Bosu ball. Just simple things like that can go a long way to, one, it can be fun. You'll challenge yourself. I know you like a challenge. I know who your boss is.
Yes.
And it'll benefit you into your long, fruitful old age.
So you're not worried about Mindy's and my age, but your advice was how to not fall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically.
I feel like this is trouble, Mindy.
I know.
For us.
We're gonna have to start doing more pickleball, I think.
Yes. What about pickleball?
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on pickleball? Like, I feel like I've heard it's a health epidemic.
It's a double-edged sword. It's great. It's easy to get into. It's fun to play. You can play it a lot of places.
Yeah.
But you also got a lot of people who are like, oh, that's easy. I can do that. They haven't done a lot before. And then you come out and you're just not used to moving all these planes of motion. And the courts are generally hard, so they're not very forgiving. So there's a lot of injuries in that capacity. I would recommend, if you don't move a lot, don't just think because it's not as hard as tennis that you can just go out there and go out like you're, in your early 20s and dive all over the place. So warming up is more important. Just taking care of your soft tissue, get massages. If you want to go be more active, just be conscious of the fact that it's not as simple as it looks, because the game may be, I don't want to say easy, because I know it can be very challenging, but
don't say
again,
it's
not
easy.
tennis.
That was a great.
Don't say it's going to be easy.
He's dumping on pickleball. This is the boy. Everybody, you can at Michael with your pickleball hate there.
It was a great intro for the two of you, by the way, when you were asking about pickleball. If you're not someone who moves around a lot,
I did notice that.
Yeah, if you're not someone. Look, we actually have been a very effective pickleball duo at times. We've played
I
together.
can imagine.
Yes, it's
I
happened.
can imagine. But also that balancing and not falling over. I know maybe we were talking
we're
about
back
in
to
terms
us
of
not
our
falling
age.
over. Really? This is what we're back to? Okay.
That is also pertinent, though, when you're playing in your Turkey Bowl Thanksgiving Day game back in Cherry Hill.
Yes.
That you don't fall over. You're able to stiff arm and keep people away from you. So there's applications beyond just not falling. So
good. Well,
how's that? Did I save that?
No, you did not. But we're going to move on. For myself, okay, Mike, I don't know if you know this. Started a podcast, right? It's a video podcast. So like, I went not that long ago, was in the doctor's office, and like very unfairly, they weighed me immediately as I walked in. I had my had all of my keys and my phone, all of my clothes on.
your life alert.
My life. Oh, that is fair. That was a good one. For the messy middle listeners, I do not have a life alert, but I've heard it's an excellent product. But the number was a little higher than I'd like. So what's the way if I want to, let's say I've got a podcast, got to look good for the cameras, maybe drop a little tonnage. If I don't want to go the GLP route, and what do I do besides just like maybe cut back on the beer and sweets?
Get taller.
How does that help?
Well, it'll be distribution. You'll be more easily distributed.
Okay.
I would go back. You're going to get taller. Your BMI would change, all those sorts of things by your height.
Smart.
But,
smart.
Sugar is certainly something, if you consume a lot of that, that could something to be cut back on. Though at the same time, you want to have, if you enjoy it, you should try to enjoy it. Movement, you may not have time or don't want to go to the gym. Again, try to take active breaks. I recommend, if we can take a meeting that doesn't require you to be on video, take a walk. I know you do that already. You
I do. I do that
you
even
incorporate
on
that
my
stuff.
video
Yeah.
meetings. I take my phone
Yeah.
and I just kind of walk around and talk to people sometimes.
Yep. And so look at
And
sugar.
they're like, who's that weirdo like talking to his phone on the campus? Honestly, like literally this happens. But okay, what else?
Try to move. Pay attention to your sleep. Poor sleep can also raise our stress levels, and we held on to stress hormones, and that's challenging to drop weight, even if we are doing the things that would typically help us drop weight. So look at your sleep. Have a mindfulness practice. Be in tune to those things, and don't beat your. I also say celebrate things. Like when we look at wellness, so many times it's like, what do I need to stop doing, or what should I do different? Like celebrate the wins that you do have. You're doing something well. Like do those. Double down on them. That can create some energy, and the scale can be a tricky thing. So I maybe wouldn't drew on that number that the doctor gave you, but rather get into things more about how your energy is. How do you feel as opposed to just the number on the scale or your body composition? Because at the end of the day, you can get jacked or whatever the case may be, but if you're miserable in the process, then what good is that?
Yeah, you see that, Mike? You're going to be all jacked and miserable this summer.
I'm going to embrace the soreness, and come episode 6, I'll be popping out of the sweater.
I love it.
There you
So,
go.
well, I feel like we all learned something. Thank you, Director of Wellness, Michael Susi, for giving us the advice that we need to improve ourselves and really just show people our best selves. Because that's going to happen, Michael Susi. We are going
Yes,
to
I
bring
know
our
it
best
will.
self. And
You
when we
always
do,
do.
we're going to shout out Michael Susi, who clearly showed that he was an ageist to me and Mindy in this podcast. Thanks for joining us, Mike, on the Messy Middle.
Thanks for having me. See y'all later.
See ya. And that's a wrap for another episode of The Messy Middle. Thanks to Paul Grewal, Michael Susi, and my partners in crime, Mike and Mindy here. Another great episode. If you like the episode, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, LinkedIn. Like, follow, subscribe. And if you liked us, give us that 5-star rating, baby. 5 stars. See you next time.